Hi, welcome to the Quakes Motel. My name's Conan. In today's video, we're going to do something a little bit different. I love my hip hop. I've loved it since day one. I've been buying hip hop since the early 80s. Massive crate digger. Love my boom bap. But I do also love my house music. And most people, if they know my productions, they know me as a house music producer, right from the late 80s all the way through the 90s into the 2000s. I've had quite a few of my friends say, Conan, can you do a video making a house beat? So I want to show how quickly and easily you can actually build a house beat up in the MPC. Now I started on the SP1200 and the MPC 60, so I've been making house beats in this kind of environment for a long time, and I still make my house beats predominantly on the MPC, but nowadays I use an MPC One or the MPC Live 2. So I just want to show you how quickly and how easily it is to build up a house beat in something like the MPC, but I'm also going to show you a few tricks and a few little things that I've learned over the years and share with you. So let's jump in. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is if I've just switched on my MPC and I'm going to make a house beat, maybe add some chords or something like that over the top of it, just kind of start building a kind of 90s sounding deep house kind of thing. Big influences for me are people like Kerri Chandler, Master Work, Kenny Dope, Todd Terry, Sandy Rivera, George Morel, Strictly Rhythm. You know, that kind of era is the kind of era where I was DJing a lot, you know, every single weekend. I was playing at places like the Ministry of Sound, DJing all over the world, playing in Ibiza, that kind of thing. So that period of house music was massive for me. The 90s, mid-90s, I call it the golden era of house music. Everyone has their own golden era. That's the golden era for me. So I was influenced a lot by them, and we were all making drums in the same kind of way. Most of us were using an SP1200 or an MPC. Most of us were sampling drum machines. Most of us were sampling disco records, funk records, jazz records, and combining it all together. The way we would build drums would not be just to use a 909, but we would use some elements of the 909, perhaps, or the 808, or the 606, or the 707, and then we would sample old funk tracks, disco tracks, loft classics, block party classics, all that kind of stuff, and we would sample all those and build up beats in an SP1200 or MPC 60 or 3000 or 2000, etc. And that's what all of us were doing, and we were sampling off house records and hip hop records, you know, everything. We would take kicks and snares and hats from everywhere and then build our own house beats up. And so we were all doing it in a similar kind of way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in and just load up a kit. I'm going to use one of my old kits, my old MPC 3000 or 2000, and just build up a house beat and just go for it quite quickly. And hopefully there'll be some little tips in there, some little things I can show you that I've learned over the years and the way that I build up house beats. So I'll try and explain as I go along as well. So we'll just start up with a user template. There's a video about that if you want to download the user template. And I'm going to go into some of my old MPC kits. Let's go Dusty Kit. I know that's a mix of some 909s and some old funk records and stuff like that. So we'll load that up. Let's keep it at 120s, do 4 bars. So you can hear there's a mixture. So there's a 909, but then there's some samples off a Meters record. That's off a Kings of Tomorrow record. I remember sampling it. That's a snare drum off Shack Up by Bambara, so an old funk classic. So it's a real mixture. So what I often used to do is I would use a 909 kick as a basic kick in the background, and then I would layer some acoustic kicks over the top, some sample kicks, etc. Then I would build. I would start with a kick, and then I would tend to build my top line, which is the hats. Now a lot of people use splice and sample packs, etc. now, or loops to build up their own top lines, but what I prefer to do is build up my own. And the way that I would do that is I would layer loads of different hats, maybe some hats over the top of each other, but then also some hats swung and fill-in hats and some closed hats and some open hats. So what I'll do is I'll do that, and I'm just going to do it on the fly, and you can kind of watch, or you can pause and rerun it, etc. So we'll start with the 909. So I'm now going to layer an acoustic kick over the top. The reason why I do that is because as much as I love a 909, and I do love a 909, sometimes I wanted my beats to sound a little bit more organic and not sound exactly like a 909. But you can't argue the fact that 909 4 on the floor for a house record is just basic fundamentals. It's just like the foundation. So I would use a 909. I would sometimes change the way the 909 sounded. I would have it all the high ends rolled off, so it was just a thump on the bottom or the low end. Add an acoustic, that's off a disco record, over the top, and then you've got the oomph, but you've still got a lot of organic sound to it as well. So then I would start adding some hats. So I've changed the time correction to 61 to create a bit of swing, because I want to add some kind of skippy close hats in there. So adding a bit of swing won't make them sit exactly on the grid. So there I've built up the foundations. I've got the swinging hats, I've got the kind of top line, the bit of a shuffle, got the clap down, and now for me it was always about the snares. The snares is what really made the track. You could keep it a straight 4 on the floor kind of snare drum where you would just copy what the clap's doing, or you could swing the snare drums a little bit and add a little bit of character. This was big like with the UK garage kind of stuff, but it was also big with people like Kings of Tomorrow, Masters at Work, Todd Terry especially. Love doing things with snare drums. So now I'm just gonna kind of practice a few chops. Now remember that I've got TC on 61 for selected, so it's automatically swinging that for me. Without swing, that snare drum would sound very on the beat and it just wouldn't have that groove. Adding the swing to it 61, or whatever you want to add to it 61, just seems to be my go-to for house, but it can be 59 to 63. 65 is good for hip-hop. It changes, you know, it's subjective, but 61 on this MPC one I like. MPC 2000, I think 59% was kind of my favourite, but you know, it changes, and you know, like I said, it's totally subjective. But with that swing on there, now my head's moving. If I didn't have that swing on there and the snare drum was just sitting on the grid and the hats weren't swung slightly as well, you don't get that head nod. And that's what I want out of a house track, especially. I want that head nod. So, you know, already... That's sounding nice to me. Now, a trick, Kenny Dope uses this trick quite a lot, and John from Mood to Swing uses this quite a lot as well, is you use your kick drum. So you've got your main foundation kick drum, but then you need to have an acoustic kick drum, maybe add in a little bit of a kind of additional flick in there, but use it on 16 levels so it's a bit lower. So can you hear what I mean? You kind of got those flick kicks in there. Now I don't actually like that at all. So I've kept it a bit simpler there. It was a bit too fancy before. So you can see how quickly you can build up a beat just by using these little tricks. Swing, adding acoustic drums over drum machines, sounds, building your own kind of top lines, adding a bit of character and a bit of swing in your snare drums, having some like little flicks, some like little fills on the snare drums or little ghost snare drums. Let's have a listen what else we've got in here. See, just adding that little flick in there. And that is definitely for me what it was about when it came to building house beats. With hip hop beats, boom bap beats, they tend to be a lot more simpler. You still use layers, but you don't. You know, with house you can layer and layer and layer and layer, and you've just got so much more to play with. You can these can fly around in the stereo field. You can widen some hats, keep some hats mono. You can do the same with your claps, etc. You can add a little bit of delay to kind of get a nice groove going as well. Right, so let's just build it up a little bit and just add some kind of chord thing over the top of it and just show you how quick and easy it is to do that on the MPC. So if you're going to plug in instrument. Okay, we've still got our drums on track 1. I have Mini D as my default instrument, so let's just use something off Mini D. Let's try a synth noise. Let's try that sand pad. I want the attack to be a little bit open the cut up. Get rid of that delay. Add a little bit of release. Yep, that's better. And let's go into pad perform. Let's put some chords on. Major 135. It's fine. Classic house. I mean, that's how we used to make house in the 90s. We'd use something like a Korg, what was it called? Poly 61, something like that, and it would have this feature where you could just hit a chord button, write a chord in, and then you would just play the chord up and down the keyboard. And that was how we did it, because most of us weren't classically trained musicians, but it would be an easy way to write in chords. And that has carried through to now, you know, big deep house records now still use that kind of chord style. So let's try something like that. Okay. So there you have it. I mean, I could have taken it a lot further. I could have added a bass line. Perhaps I should have added a bass line. But you can see with just, you know, some decent kits. And this is the thing, to go into it a little bit more deeply, you know, it's a lot of the time with beats, whether it be house, boom bap, whatever you're making, it's about sound selection. You know, I could take that drum beat, the MIDI for that drum beat, and put different sounds on there, and it just wouldn't sound as good. I like the way that sounded. I like the fact that it had like acoustic drum character in there, but it had some kind of electronic drum machine sounds in there as well. Obviously the 909, you know, and a lot of it was about sound, about choosing the right sounds, about using the right sounds, sampling the right sounds, having the right kind of character. Before you even got to the mixing desk, before you even came out of the MPC, it would be what you put in there, what you chose, and then how you programmed it. You know, and sometimes, yeah, you know, sometimes you would literally write a 4 on the floor house drum beat and then change the sounds until you found the sounds that you liked. You know, that wasn't an unusual thing to do. But I just kind of really wanted to show, because a lot of my friends have been, a lot of my production friends have been saying to me, Conan, can you just show us a quick house drum beat on the MPC in the old style, the way you used to do it? So I thought I'd quickly do this video as a bit of fun, just to kind of show that, and just show you that it's not really that difficult if you've got the right sounds and, you know, you listen to other house records, especially listen to people like Kenny Dope, Kerri Chandler, Sandy Rivera, Todd Terry, Muta Swing, you know, all the people that I've already mentioned. You know, those guys really kind of paved the way for that style of house music. I'm not talking necessarily about, you know, the million different genres there are now, but in the 90s it was house music. There were maybe about 4 or 5 different genres, but, you know, those guys, you know, and also, you know, a lot of the guys from Detroit and Chicago, I could name tons, but those are the guys that I mentioned the most, because they were probably the biggest influence on me personally in terms of writing drums and the sounds, the way they used it, the way they combined hip-hop kind of sounds. Todd Terry and Kenny Dope were masters at doing that, mixing hip-hop sounds with house drum machines, etc., gritty 12-bit drum machines, you know, all that kind of stuff. And they were the biggest influence on me, and even to this day, with my hip-hop drum programming and with my house drum programming and with the lo-fi and lounge kind of stuff I do, you know, I still use those principles that I learned back then programming house music. So thank you for watching. I hope I didn't ramble too much. Please subscribe for more mixing, mastering and MPC tutorials and reviews. This is the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. Till next time.